Hi, everybody. Miguel Hernandez here. Thank you for joining our meeting. We'll allow a minute or two for folks that continue to trickle in. So please bear with us a minute or two. Okay, I think we have achieved a critical mass here. Hope others continue to join as we progress through our meeting. But I would like to thank everybody for joining today's meeting on the Salt and Sea Management Program 2025 annual report. Hopefully, you guys have had a chance to see it, review it, or glanced at it. There's some good information in there, which we'll go into deeper detail later today. But this is our second meeting. We had a meeting last night at the community of West Shores, which was pretty well attended. I think we had over 30 folks in person there. Good opportunity to connect with the community there. We had some really good questions and comments about the work during 2024. So thank you all for joining. We'll go um, over what's in the annual report, some of the highlights of our work, and I think we skipped the slide here, but just before we get started, I would just like to provide some instructions in the Zoom webinar. There is a interpretation available as usual. We have Spanish interpretation for you all, for those that need it. You just go to the bottom of your screen. You'll look for a circle that says interpretation, and you will select your language of preference, English or Spanish. If you happen to select the Spanish option, would recommend that you also select the mute original audio option. And so you don't hear both languages at the same time. And I'll repeat the same instruction in Spanish now. Esta reunión se está llevando a cabo con interpretación simultánea en español. Para aquellos que necesitan escuchar esta reunión en español, la opción en su pantalla de Zoom se encuentra en la parte de abajo, en el círculo del globo terráqueo donde dice interpretación o interpretation, si está en inglés. Al seleccionar ahí, seleccione la opción de español y le sugiero que también seleccione la opción que dice Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original para que no escuche la reunión en los dos lenguajes. Esta reunión se llevará a cabo en inglés, pero la traducción está disponible en español. Okay, and we usually have the option on your side to have a Q&A box there. So feel free to drop in your questions there. We will be having options or the ability to stop after each of our sections that we have prepared for you all today for quick Q&A. And you'll also have the option to raise your hand, and we will unmute folks as we progress through our meeting. We ask that we keep questions relevant to the topic at hand. Well, first we'll cover now the agenda overview, but just so we sort of stay constant on our meeting here. So we'll have an opportunity for questions after each section, and then at the very end of our meeting we'll have an opportunity for public comment. So we welcome all of your comments there as well. So with this, I would like to pass it over to Assistant Secretary Joe Shea. to give us some welcoming remarks.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Miguel. And thanks so much to all of you who are joining us here today. My name is Joe Shea, and I am the Assistant Secretary for Salt and Sea Policy at the California Natural Resources Agency. I'm relatively new to this role. I started back in December, and I'm really looking forward to connecting with all of you on this webinar to answer questions and talk about the work that our program has done over the course of 2024. It's been a really historic year for our program in terms of milestones and moving the work ahead that we are doing at the Salton Sea at an accelerated pace. So without further ado, let's get into it. Can we go to the next slide? I'm first going to take a step back and talk a little bit about the work that we are all doing at the Salt and Sea Management Program. So, as some of you might know, our work is focused on implementing 29,800 acres of projects around the sea that perform aquatic habitat restoration roles and also have a role in dust suppression, constructing dust suppression projects around the sea. Can we go to the next slide, please? And taking a step back and looking at the Salton Sea itself, it's located, as many of you know, in the lower basin of what was historically Lake Cahuilla, which filled and dried periodically over thousands and thousands of years. Since 1905, 1907, it's been sustained by runoff from irrigated farmland, and we know that multiple factors have reduced inflows to the Salton Sea, which has resulted in more exposed lake bed and loss of lake volume. Can we go to the next slide? So we know what the challenge are before us, right? That's what our program is focused on, addressing dust from the exposed lake bed that can affect air quality and public health for the communities surrounding the Salton Sea. We've also noticed and documented and are certainly focused on continuing to track the increased salinity in the waters of the sea that is unable to sustain many forms of aquatic life. We understand that there are habitat values that are being lost. That is why we are focused on implementing these aquatic habitat projects. And certainly we're mindful of the broader conditions of drought that are affecting the inflows to the sea and contributing to the factors at the sea that we're seeing today. You can go to the next slide. And that is why our program exists. We are focused on implementing these projects around the sea, and it's a really big effort from our state team. We're made up of the California Natural Resources Agency, so myself, Miguel Hernandez. You'll see Mario Llanos from our team as well. We've also got the Department of Water Resources heavily invested in this effort, as well as the Department of Fish and Wildlife. So you'll hear many different members of our teams talking at this webinar, and you'll see us around the sea. That is who we are. That is our program. We are one team at the state, and we've got a number of folks who are focused on, again, implementing these projects and accelerating the work, the pace and scale of our work at the Salton Sea. So I'll pass it over to my colleague, Mario Llanos, to talk a little bit more about the work that we're doing.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Mario Llanos, Deputy Assistant Secretary for California Natural Resources Agency, working in the Salt Sea Management Program. So what's happening to improve our conditions at the sea through our work? As Joe mentioned, we are working on a 10-year plan to implement 29,800 acres by 2028. 50% habitat restoration projects, 50% dust suppression projects. As of the end of 2024, currently we have 1,300 dust suppression acres completed and about 347 aquatic habitat acres completed. Additionally, we have about 1,606 acres of interim dust suppression completed, and then a little over 5,000 acres under construction, with many more under planning and design. Next slide. So this is a picture of our annual report. We produce it every year right around March. And this is one requirement of the state water board orders to produce this document detailing the previous year's work. So everything that you see in here will be from 2024. The annual report pictured here was released in March in English and Spanish and details our work from 2024, as well as kind of a level setting of kind of where we are overall to date. It can be found on our website at www.saltandsea.ca.gov. Next slide. So the purpose of the annual report is, or I guess what you'll find in the annual report is um, the water board order requirements, including milestones completed, project acres completed, upcoming projects, status of financial resources and permits, and departures from targeted acreages and plans to address those deficiencies. However, if you look through the report, there are many more details and information about the work that our program is doing. Next slide. So just to give an overview of what you'll find in a little more detail in the annual report, it begins with an executive summary, which is a high-level summary of our previous year's accomplishments, touching on everything in the chapters below. And then when you go to chapter 1, that's the introduction and purpose. Here you'll find notable highlights of our accomplishments in from our program in 2024. Chapter 2 goes into project delivery and just talks about the current status of our projects and projects that are in development. Some projects are in development, but not all of them. And here you'll find, again, more details about those projects and footprints, acreages, what types of projects they are. Chapter 3 is the partnerships. Here we detail our many partnerships that make our work possible. Chapter 4 is community engagement. In this chapter, we detail the engagement we've accomplished in the previous years and ways that you can stay engaged with our program. Chapter 5 goes into planning. This chapter, you'll find updates on our various planning documents for project implementation. You'll find updates on long-term planning and details about our program's organizational capacity and funding for our program. And then chapter 6 includes next steps for our program in the near term and adds some detail about current conditions at the sea and how that guides our project planning. We also detail or showcase our potential pathway to complete our 29,800 acre waterboard target. And then finally, the appendices dive deeper into existing conditions at the sea, and you'll also find funding details in Appendix A and B. Next slide. So next I'll talk about project delivery. Next slide, please. So a critical component to timely completion and success of our SSMP projects remains land access. We like to show the slide to show the checkerboard land ownership in areas around the sea where projects are to be implemented. Timely temporary encroachment permits for recon and survey and land access easements to construct are needed by one or more landowners for each project. The state owns very little land and almost no land where we're constructing or plan to construct projects. This has proven to be a major hurdle in delivering our projects. I'll note that the Salt and Sea Commitments Agreement, which was signed in 2022 between Department of Interior, the state, Coachella Valley Water District, and IID, that this agreement outlined the creation of programmatic land access agreements with landowners such as federal partners and IID and Coachella Valley Water District. While we've developed a programmatic land access agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation, it's not so simple to do with other entities such as IID, where we have multiple restoration projects, and each one is very unique. However, it's allowed us to kind of develop standard language that kind of kicks us off and gets us a little further in the process. So there's some efficiencies that have been gained there. Next slide. So this is a new map that we've put into this annual report. It illustrates a wide range of activities or projects currently being undertaken by the SSMP or envisioned by the SSMP team and its partners towards implementation of projects at the sea as part of the 10-year plan. Many of the projects can be found in Chapter 2 or Chapter 6, and they could make up the potential projects needed to complete or acreage needed to complete the 29,800 acre goal. Next slide. So this is our first major aquatic habitat project, creating shallow, medium, and deep water ponds with a mix of new river water and salt and seawater to sustain birds and fish. This is the SCH project. It's 4,100 acres. Once the project gets flooded, it will provide immediate dust suppression for surrounding communities at the south end of the sea. The original 4,100 acre project is mostly constructed, and further expansion is currently underway to add an additional about 5,300 acres. This will be discussed later in the presentation by my colleague Melinda, who will go into some more details. Next slide. Next, we're doing veg enhancement projects for dust suppression. These are aimed at establishing native vegetation on exposed lake bed to reduce dust emissions. Currently, we have 3 projects totaling about 1,700 acres. These sites were selected because they're some of the higher emissive sites around the sea and near communities. The 3 sites are Tule Wash, which is about 400 acres. I'm sorry, Clubhouse, which is about 400 acres. Tule Wash, which is 1,215 acres, all near the community of Salt City. And then our third site is about 93 acres near the community of Bombay Beach, and that one's called West Bombay Beach. This year, we'll work to complete these projects on reclamation land, those 1,700 initial acres. And then we're going to commence work this year on an additional 382 acres of IID land adjacent to the Clubhouse and Tule Wash projects. And I'll get into these a little more later in the presentation. Next slide. So the SSMP is also partnering and supporting partner-led projects. Currently, 3 partner-led projects are being planned and or designed for implementation. The Bombay Beach Wetland Restoration Project or Enhancement Project is being led by the state in partnership with Audubon. This project aims to stabilize, preserve, and enhance existing emergent wetland of over 564 acres adjacent to the community of Bombay Beach. Next is the Desert Shores Channel Restoration Project led by Salt and Sea Authority in partnership with Imperial County and the state. This project aims to refill the 5 southernmost boat channels in the Desert Shores Marina, creating habitat and possible recreational opportunities. Finally, the North Lake Demonstration Pilot Project is a project being led by Salt and Sea Authority and Riverside County in collaboration and funding from the state. The project originally envisioned to create a approximately 160 acre lake. It's now revised to encompass an approximately 70 acre project area, including at least 40 acres of wetlands and a shallow lake of about 30 acres. Next slide. So I won't read all these, but these are kind of our next tranche of projects that, are currently being surveyed or, in some cases designed. This is kind of our immediate next projects that will be, and this doesn't make up the full 30,000 acres, but these are like the next projects that we're going to be using the funding available to advance, multiple projects at the same time. Here on the slide, you'll see what type of project they are, whether they're like wetland enhancement or a aquatic habitat project or a veg enhancement project, and then you'll see the acreage associated. Details about most of these projects you can find in Chapter 2 of the project section in the annual report, and then again in Chapter 6 in the next steps section of the annual report. I think that's the end of my slides. I'm going to pass it to my colleague Miguel.
Great, thank you, Mario. So now I'll be quickly talking about the SSMP project tracker. Maybe you've heard of it already. Maybe you've seen it. Maybe you've navigated through it already. I'll actually go into deeper detail and do a quick demo later in this presentation. But I just wanted to flag for you that this tool is available. This was actually launched during 2024. Uh, after receiving feedback from folks that they would like to see, kind of like one-stop shop for the progress that we're making at the C and with the program. So the image that you see here, it's a screenshot of this website, this project tracker. This is one of the pages that you'll find in there that gives you a good overview of where we stand as we speak about a total of projects, funding, or partnerships, and also where we stand in meeting the 29,800 acre goal. And you'll see this on our website. So you'll find this at saltc.ca.gov under the projects tab. Like I said, I'll go into deeper detail and do a quick demo later today, but I just wanted to point out that that was one of the major accomplishments in 2024. Next slide. Okay, next I'll be speaking about partnerships and community engagement. Next slide. This is a list of not all, but a good portion of our partners. Maybe you already know this, but the program, it's not able to operate on its own. Not even the 3 agencies that comprise the SSMP program. But we rely a lot on our partnerships with the local CBOs, with landowners, of course, with our project partners, and many other folks that provide data as well. So like I said, these are some of the partners that collaborate with us to be able to achieve success on Salton Sea projects. So also community members play a key role in our work. So we just wanted to acknowledge that those partnerships are ongoing and that we appreciate your ongoing support. Next slide. Okay, we also have in 2024, we put a strong emphasis on project tours and participating at partner meetings as well as presentations. So we did over 50 opportunities throughout the year, throughout 2024, in different ways. If it's partner-led meetings, if it's providing an update at existing meetings, the tours. So we had a good amount of opportunities for folks to know more about our work. And also we continued with our roadshow presentations at city council meetings. We were able to target different city councils meetings throughout the region, from the Palm Desert area all the way to the border in Calexico. We haven't hit all the cities just yet, but we will. That work is ongoing, and perhaps we'll do a second round to provide them with good updated information to all those local elected officials in the region. Next slide. Okay, also another document that was completed in 2024. This is the Community Outreach and Engagement Plan, which was actually developed with support of the Community Outreach and Engagement Committee. This was actually kind of years in the making, but it was there for a little bit, and we took this task again in 2024, and we pretty much compiled all the recommendations that we've heard over the years of how to connect with community, how to make more productive meetings, how we even conduct our outreach, best recommended strategies and tactics on how to promote the meetings and the types of activities that we should include in our meetings. So we consolidated all that feedback that we've received over the years and put it into this document that you can find on our website. And like I said, it's pretty much a roadmap of how the Salton Sea Management Program engages with frontline communities at the sea. Next slide. Okay, next is our community needs reports. These reports were produced with support from our partners, local CBOs, NGOs, and of course communities. And 2 reports were created. One that's the Salton Sea Community Needs and Recommended Actions by Better Work Group, which is sort of a broader aspect or broader vision of the needs of the Salton Sea communities. and the Salt and Sea Management Program and Community Needs Report, which is primarily how the program is able to undertake some of these identified needs within this report. So some of those needs, the identified needs is community engagement, meaningful tribal consultation, equitable outdoor access, public health, workforce and economic development, climate resilience, transportation, and broadband access. So on the SSMP and Community Needs Report, we identified as a program ways of how we can incorporate that feedback or meet that need. Just a quick example on that on community engagement. This is where we enhanced our uh, community presence, hosting tours. That's not only constructing the project, which is our mandate by the water order, but next taking it a little step forward with engaging community to see at firsthand, to be able to see the tangible results that we're achieving. And that's I guess I'll take this opportunity to offer up anybody that would like to visit our projects. They're not open to the public. However, we do offer guided tours to visit the area. So that's one way that we meet that particular need. And we could provide other examples for the rest of the needs, but I will not go into deeper detail. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just a bit on how these reports were developed. They were informed by community lived experiences, and we provided also opportunities for folks to review the final draft. We released a draft January 2024, offered a 60-day public comment period, and within that 60-day comment period, we also had 3 workshops and 2 in person, one in Imperial, one in Riverside, and also one online to continue to get more feedback. And in fact, we actually added an appendix that compiles all that feedback that we received and the ways we enhanced the report. We released the final report in September 2024, and you can, if you want to see it or read it, you can also find it on our website, saltandsea.ca.gov. And I'll pass it over to my colleague Mario again.
Yeah, so I'll be talking about planning and next steps, which are chapter 5 and 6 in our annual report. You can see the page numbers there. Next slide. So in 2024, the program was ecstatic to complete the phase 1 10-year plan environmental assessment with the Army Corps of Engineers leading the way, along with cooperating agencies, including federal cooperating agencies, including U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and Natural Resources Conservation Service. This included completion of a programmatic agreement for Section 106 of the National Preservation Act, also a programmatic biological opinion, and letters of permission, all of which will expedite permitting actions for SSMP and partner projects identified within the 10-year plan. However, although the permits are streamlined, the time needed for federal agency review can be as long as 170 days, and project level permits are still needed. One-off project level permits are still needed to be received by the agencies. The program has already submitted 1 full application and have at least 2 more underway. Next slide. So, as many may know, the SSMP, as part of the water order, developed and released a long-range plan in December 2022. It was in draft form, and last year in April, the final long-range plan, encompassing all the comments from that draft that was released, was finalized. The final plan was submitted to the Army Corps of Engineers for consideration for use in the feasibility study. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, DWR, and Salt and Sea Authority signed a cost share agreement in December 2022 to launch the feasibility study aimed at identifying potential ecosystem, flood risk management, and other land and water resource projects and actions for long-term restoration at the sea. DWR, Department of Water Resources, and Salton Sea Authority represent the non-federal co-sponsors in agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The feasibility study officially began in March 2023. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers feasibility study team will model future hydrologic and hydraulic conditions at the Salton Sea over a 50-year period of analysis, approximately 2035 to 2085 for the study. The entire feasibility study is estimated to be completed by 2029 for approximately 22.5 million, dependent on funding availability and complexity of analyses. If a feasible and federally justified restoration alternative solution is identified, it has the potential to receive a 65% federal cost share for construction, which is significant for funding for these projects. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers approved the scope, schedule, and budget of the feasibility study, which includes analysis of long-range restoration concepts in the long-range restoration increment and early implementation increment, which will focus on accelerated implementation of projects at 2 locations. One, a project near the Alamo River, and 2, a project west of the Whitewater River / Coachella Valley Stormwater Channel. Next slide. So in the appendix B, you'll find a budget table that gets into a lot of detail, but at a high level, the state has authorized approximately $545 million to Salton Sea related activities. The first 70 million increment of federal funding tied to the commitments agreement was quickly put to use in December 2023 to add an additional expansion of 750 acres to the SCH. That's the East Pond 1 expansion, which is scheduled to be completed or mostly completed and is scheduled to be flooded in the coming months. An additional 175 million in federal funding was committed in September 2024, which is now being used to design and ultimately construct the center and West Pond expansions of the species conservation habitat, adding an additional up to or estimated 4,500 acres to the original SCH footprint. With the passage of Prop 4 in November 2024, the SSMP anticipates another 160 million out of that climate bond funding identified for use for immediate projects currently in design. Also tied to the passage of Prop 4 is another 10 million for either the creation of the Salton Sea Conservancy and or the Salton Sea Authority. Next slide. So just to wrap up, the team remains committed to expediting the planning, design, and implementation of our next set of projects identified in Chapter 6. We continue to work to expedite land access agreements and permitting to implement projects on a much more rapid scale. We continue to expeditiously expand the SCH footprint, as you can see from how quickly the East Pond expansion got started and is nearly completed, to use up all of that federal funding that was earmarked for this expansion. And then we continue to advance the feasibility study in partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Salton Sea Authority. And then that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mario. So at this point, we'll open it up for any questions on this quick overview of the annual report. We will have more details on the projects in the coming slides. We will also dive a little bit deeper on the project tracker and the also the Salton Sea ecology further on. So If there's any questions on the overview of the annual report, please raise your hand. Okay, and I do see one member of the public. If we can please allow Mr. Lakic to unmute. And Mr. Lakic, you should be able to speak now. If you're talking, we're not able to hear you, unfortunately. Okay, yeah, Mr. Lakic, we're not able to hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, we have sound now. Go ahead.
The question, my question is, are you aware that what I'm seeing from this presentation, that you are accepting the fact that the lake is lost and you are managing somehow hay bales around to manage the formation of the toxic dust storms? It seems the accepting the fact that the lake is lost, that drought and there is no enough water, and all these projects are towards that. Is that true?
Thank you, Mr. Lakic. Joe, I see you've come online. Do you want to take a stab at it?
Sure. And hi, Mr. Lakic. Thank you for your question. I would say our team is very focused on the impacts that we've been observing around the shoreline of the sea, particularly with regards to exposed lake bed. We have, as part of our program to inform the delivery of our projects, done some studies on how the lake bed around the sea is contributing to dust pollution and where that pollution is occurring on the sea. And that has informed the delivery of our projects, particularly our project on the southern end of the sea that has a total footprint of nearly 10,000 acres. We're focused on implementing that so that there's water on the project that is suppressing dust and also providing aquatic habitat. You touched on some of the dust suppression projects, perhaps the ones you're seeing on the west side of the sea, which is also another emissive area as identified in our studies. And we've got our projects out there that are suppressing dust through the bales, to your point, and ultimately it's the bales right now, but in the next 2 to 3 years, what we're going to see is native vegetation that's actually growing over the bales and subsuming them, and able to suppress dust through that native vegetation. And the bales are currently giving the opportunity for this vegetation to grow and not get stymied by the dust and the wind that otherwise would likely stymie that growth. So we completely hear your concern about PM10 and dust pollution. That is really important to our program, and that's why we're focused on implementing these projects around the sea.
Thank you. But if I may say, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I can hear you.
Are you aware that there is a proposal that deals successfully with importation of seawater from Long Beach pipeline and from Sea of Cortez, dividing lake on 3 sections so that we can restore Salton Sea despite restriction from Colorado River and quantification settlement agreement that was 2003. Are you aware of that proposal?
So I am, and I think you're touching on something that's really important, and an important distinction that I want to try to make here, as it relates to the work that we're talking about here in our annual report. This annual report webinar is focused on the work that we've done over the last year. What I hear you talking about is the longer term restoration plan for the Salton Sea itself, which I think Mario touched on a couple of slides ago. We call that our long range plan. And that plan includes a number of concepts that could be utilized to restore the sea itself over a longer period of time. That plan is what we have sent over to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and as part of their Imperial Streams and Ecosystem Restoration Feasibility Study process. And that's what we are investing in, working with the federal government to identify concepts for implementation for the sea itself. It's a bit of a longer timeline to get that process, get the study from that process, and then begin implementing that. But it's something that we're focused on as well. That's what you might hear some of the folks in our program refer to as phase 2. This webinar and the work that we're talking about in terms of our immediate projects around the sea is what we call phase 1. So I hope that helps kind of provide some distinction, and certainly know that the long-term restoration of the sea is something that we're working on in tandem as we do these individualized projects around the perimeter of the sea.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lakic, and thank you, Joe, for providing a response, Mr. Lakic. I do see a question on the Q&A box. Mario, I'm not sure if you can come online again. If a commentator is asking if we can do a quick recap on the next steps before we move on to our presentation.
Next steps in the slide, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, do we want to move back to the slide there? Yeah, so I mean, this is mirroring the annual report because that's what we're talking about right now. So in the annual report in chapter 6, it talks about the immediate next steps over the next like 2 years. It goes into detail about the projects envisioned for design and implementation, and as that's currently what we're focused on and working to implement using the funding available and the new funding available through the Prop 4 funding that I had mentioned earlier. And so that goes into detail on that. And then, the bullet points here are just commitments to continue to progress that and find ways to continue to expedite land access agreements and permitting using the newly completed environmental assessment and other pathways for CEQA, like restoration, SERP permit to kind of expedite these projects, and any other ways to get projects moving faster than the last several years. Now that we have this document, I think it's really gonna push us forward as far as expediting the planning and all the permitting is necessary to complete design and start to implement multiple projects at one time, on top of the projects that are currently being implemented.
Great, thank you, Mario. Next slide, please. Okay, then we'll go ahead and get started with the project's overview. We'll dive into deeper detail into each of the active projects. Next slide. And before we do that, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to run through the project tracker itself. If you haven't seen it, we can go to it right now. I'll actually be sharing my screen. Here's a QR code for you to scan. You can also go to our Salton Sea website and click on the projects tab to see it there. So I'll allow a minute for folks to maybe take out their phones or open a new tab on your web browser if you want to follow along on what I will show you and get you to see a bit more of what's in the project tracker. Okay, so okay, hope you're able to see my screen now. Can I get a thumbs up from the team that I'm sharing my screen on the Salton Sea website?
Looks good, Miguel.
Perfect, thank you. So this is our home screen. This is where you will find uh, the latest and greatest on the Salton Sea Management Program. And you will also find the annual report itself in a digital version. You'll get the latest. You know, we announced this yesterday's and today's community meeting, and then other featured documents that you can find there. You might find relevant to take a look at, including the outreach plan that we mentioned earlier, the community needs reports, and so on, and past annual reports if you want to take a look at those as well. So for the purpose of this demo, I want to show you the project tracker, which you will find under this tab, the projects tab, and you will be taken into this project tracker welcome screen. And it gives you a quick description of what this tool is, what it tends to do for the user. And you have a direct link to the projects map where you can see and get the information of each of the project. But before I get there, I want to show you or navigate through this initial tabs that we see on the top. Project delivery tab, it's primarily just a quick overview on the work we're doing, some of the maps of the projects that that we have where we have our projects planned or underway. Also under the explored projects tab, we have all the projects that we have for the program. There's two ways you can see it. You can see it as a map, and you can toggle the view here in between the map and in a list, actually, a project list. It's the same project, same information, just different ways to view it. You will see, in this case, it's a list of all of the projects that we have. You will also see who from the Salton Sea Management Program team. It's the lead contact there. So you'll see some names of my colleagues here. Also the agencies that are who are the lead implementers, and also the stages of each of this project. Also when they started, in planning and design, and that they, in this case, for now, these are all part of a phase 1 10-year plan. You could also have the option to download a table if you want to get into that level of detail, or if you want to, you know, share with other folks, you can download it there. Perhaps the project map, it's a bit more easier to follow. Just gonna click to one of the projects that we have here. So this is one of our veg enhancement sites. This is the Tule Wash vegetation enhancement sites, which Mario mentioned a little bit earlier. This is the largest veg site that we have active. As you can see, you get a quick snapshot of what this project is, when it started, that it's under implementation, that DWR is the lead implementer within the SSMP, the type of project, which is the veg enhancement project, that is part of our 10-year plan, and some of the benefits that this project brings to the area, as well as the type of habitats that it covers. You could also download a project fact sheet. You know, you have this option if you want to, you know, get this. It's the same information, just displayed in a different way with some pictures as well. And you can do this for each of the projects that are on the map. However, gotta say that not all the projects are active or currently under construction or implementation. So the active ones, of course, will have pictures and a bit more information. But eventually, once progress continues to be made, we will continue to update this tool. We actually have a commitment for ourselves to update this data twice a year. So you will be seeing those updates as we progress. Okay, you can also sort of categorize these projects in project type, phases. If you want to know project types that we have, again, it's the same projects. It's not any other new projects from the list. It's just sort of separated in this case by a project type. So if you want to learn more about the aquatic habitat projects, this is where you will find it. And same for the suppression projects and so on. And then the results tab. This is actually the screenshot I showed earlier in the slides, where you will have that quick snapshot if you want to learn where we currently stand as far as meeting that 29,000 acre, 8,000 acre goal, and where we currently stand there. So I invite you to take a closer look. We will continue to make progress and continue to update this tool as we move forward. So this is in case you haven't been able to attend one of our meetings, or you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, that's where we get the latest and greatest on our program. This is a quick way for you to visit our website and see where we currently stand with our program. So I invite you to play a little bit with it. There's I think it's pretty easy going. However, we're always open if you see potentially any glitches, hopefully not. But also if you have any recommendations of how we can improve the tool, we always welcome that type of feedback as well. Okay, so with that, I'll conclude my quick overview. Next slide, please. And I'm happy to take questions, if any. Okay,
Hola, buenas tardes, Miguel, ¿cómo está?
Adelante, Conchita, sí, buen día.
Ok. Mi comentario es acerca de sobre la información que nos están compartiendo por el sitio web. Hay una posibilidad de que cuando nosotros estemos revisando los planes, podamos hacer nuestros comentarios en los proyectos, en particular de North Lake, y sé que todavía está en planeación. Pues quisiera aportar más de lo que nuestra comunidad desea, porque estoy mirando que es para la superficie del polvo, la hábitat y la recreación de conservación especial. Todos esos puntos son importantes, pero la supresión del polvo es sumamente ya una emergencia para nuestra comunidad, dado que el lago se está secando más rápido como lo había pronosticado. Gracias.
Gracias, Conchita. Sí, gracias por su comentario. Mire, es muy buen dato o buena recomendación para poder tener, ya sean comentarios directamente en la página, pero siempre o tenemos la puerta abierta para ya sea tener alguna plática sobre el proyecto, o si tiene un proyecto, en este caso usted menciona el North Lake Project, eh, para platicarlo y escuchar sus recomendaciones, o de qué manera pudiéramos pues tomar en consideración sus recomendaciones también. Si quisiera hacerlo de manera escrita, pues también lo puede hacer, mandarnos un correo al correo de contacto de nosotros, que es saltonsea @resources.ca.gov. Pero a su punto, tal vez pudiéramos ver la opción de agregar una caja de comentarios, y ver de qué manera lo podemos gestionar ahí para también no no llenarnos nada más de información o recomendaciones directas. Sí tendríamos que tener un control de todos esos comentarios, pero por el momento, como le digo, le ofrezco el correo electrónico o la opción siempre existe y para cualquier miembro del público tener una reunión o tener cierta comunicación para proveerle los últimos datos del proyecto y también pues escuchar su opinión.
Sí, gracias, Miguel. Yo creo que sí, ahorita están hablando en particularmente de todo el trabajo que ustedes están haciendo por el Salto en sí, ¿verdad? Pero sí creo que una reunión, diría yo, individual del parte de North Lake sería genial con la comunidad para que puedan escuchar un poco más solamente sobre este tema y que ustedes nos actualicen en qué punto están, en qué fase van y todos los puntos. Sé que es mucha información y más trabajo para ustedes, pero creo que en este punto de desarrollo es sumamente importante la participación de la comunidad. Y al igual, esta información se me llegó a mi correo postal y eso fue un punto muy bueno. Y que las reuniones sean híbridas es otro punto, pero gracias, Miguel, por contestar a mi pregunta.
Sí, gracias, Conchita. Y nuestros socios del Salton Sea Authority y el condado de Riverside tienen ellos juntas regulares. No recuerdo exactamente cuándo fue la última, pero fue hace unos, pudiera decir, noviembre del año pasado en la comunidad de North Shore, donde dieron lo último que se sabe de este proyecto. No va a ser la última reunión, pero sí estoy de acuerdo que más oportunidades de hablar de este proyecto en específico son necesarias. Y gracias por la recomendación y qué bueno que le llegó la tarjeta por correo. Hacía mucho tiempo que no lo usamos y sí nos ayuda que nos haga saber que usted se enteró de esa manera. Gracias. Okay, and I see one other hand up from Mr. Lackage again. Please ask your question in regards to the project tracker.
Uh,
And we're not getting any sound, Mr. Lackage. Okay. Okay, Mr. Lackage, we'll get back to you. Seems that you might have some difficulties with your audio, but we'll get back to you at a future comment time or comment period. I think we're ready to move to our next slide. And I'll pass it over to my colleague, Melinda.
Good afternoon, all. Next slide. So as you've already seen the slide, this is a species conservation habitat project. It's our first large-scale project at the southern end of the sea, and it's a habitat project, aquatic ponds. This figure shows the original SCH project, and on the very west side, you see the visitors observation area. There's a west pond, a central pond, which are west of the New River, and then the two kind of off-white yellowish small ponds, those are sedimentation basins. And so as the water is mixed from the Salton Sea and the New River, they move through those basins and the sediment settles out so that the water in the ponds is clearer. And then there's the East Pond that is east of the New River. And then on the very top of the figure, you see the saline pump station. So there's a causeway that goes out into the sea, and there's a pump at the end of that causeway. And then there's actually a dredge channel that's off of this figure, and it goes out into the sea so that there will be water available to the saline pump station for the life of the project. On the south side of the project, there's also interception ditches, which moves the IID drain water around the site. and provides pupfish connectivity within the drains. Next slide. So this is the expansion that is constructed, and actually these ponds are filling. So the East Pond 1 expansion is one pond. It adds about 750 acres to the original SCH footprint. This work was funded by money from USBR, from Reclamation, and that work started late in 2024, and the berm was completed in March, and water has started filling the original East Pond project, and then it will fill the East Pond expansion pond. The system is designed to operate so that the east side can come online and be filled while there's still work going on the west side of the New River. So when this is flooded up, it'll be about 2,000 acres that will be completed in 2025. Next slide, please. So this is a figure of the planning area for the west side of the New River. This is still in design and planning, and we're calling this the Center and West Pond. There's 3 ponds, which are kind of being renamed a Northern Pond, and then there's the Southern 2 ponds. And this is also showing the depth of water. So the brown area that's in the middle of that northern expansion pond is a large island that will have the opportunity to provide some mud flats and area for birds to forage and to hang out. There will be an opportunity to put some channels in there so that there's water flowing through the area. And so it'll be a feature that's in the northern pond. And then there'll be some other smaller ponds in the southern islands, and all connected with berms. And this will total about 4,500 acres. So as been mentioned already, that this will be about a 10,000 acre, just under 10,000 acre project. We'll have that final acreage when the as-builts are done. And then, yeah, and as I said, this is in planning right now, so construction has not started. And we're also in the permitting process. Next slide. So these are some of the facilities that are out at SCH. So on the left is the visitor observation area that I mentioned at Poe Road. This site has not been fully built out yet, but the 6 things that you see on the figure are actually picnic tables, and then there'll be a shade cover. The little building that's kind of north is a bathroom, and then there'll be an area for parking for school buses and for cars. And then we're working on a vegetation plan for this site and a garden. And then there's also work to develop interpretive panels. And we're working with several tribes in the region, as well as CDFW and the Fish and Wildlife Service, to provide the content for that. And so there'll be interpretive panels and a whole walking and shade area for people to be able to see the SCH. On the right-hand side, that's just the construction trailers for Kiewit, and then there's the O&M. So that'll be where future O&M for the state is. And for those of you that have been out there, that building is where we have a lot of meetings and kickoffs for public tours. Next slide, please. These are some more current pictures. I know we've had pictures in the past. The top left picture is of the sedimentation basins. And then the New River is the vegetated area that goes through the middle of them. And then that's looking north, so the sea is at the top of the picture. Since then, the east side has been filled. So the picture on the right shows the east berm expansion. That's the connecting it to the causeway. So you can see how some of the water that's on the left of that berm was Salton Sea water that was already out there. And so that berm was partially built in the wet, but now that berm has been completely finished. And so, as I said, the ponds are starting to be filled. So that was a big milestone to complete that berm. And then the bottom left picture is also of the sedimentation basins. You can see the weir in the middle of the picture, and that is looking south. So actually the water is flowing towards us in the New River. And as it goes over the weir, that moves into the mixing basins and then the sedimentation basins. And then the picture on the right bottom is one of the loafing islands. So this project has been designed to provide loafing and nesting habitat. And these islands this is a loafing island, but the islands all have different kind of substrates and matrices and ability for chicks to get down to the water. And so as this pond level comes up, you'll be able to see, and I'm sure we'll have some great drone footage at some point to show how these islands look in the ponds. Next slide. So this is more detail. We've already talked about the mixing basins. So those mixing basins mix the New River water and the saline salt and seawater. And so that's mixed at a pretty high velocity. And then that water flows out into the east sedimentation basin and the west sedimentation basin. And then that water moves from the sedimentation basin out into the habitat ponds. Next slide. Any questions on SCH?
Okay, I do see a couple participants. I think Ms. Phillips, you should be able to speak now.
Hi there. My question is in regards to the salinity of SCH. How much of it, like percentage-wise, will be deep water habitat with a salinity compatible for some kind of fish that will benefit the fish-eating birds versus how much will be shallow wetland habitat for shorebirds?
So that's a great question, and we can go into more detail offline. The ponds are, there will be a stocking plan that CDFW is working on to stock tilapia. You can see in this figure, the purple is the deep water habitat, and then the lighter bluish greenish is shallow. So depending on the bathymetry of the sea, that's where we get the habitat. I'd have to look up the percentages. I want to say like 20% or more is deep, and then yeah, I'd have to look up. I can get back to you with the actual percentages, but we did have performance criteria for that. There's also the salinity in general is 20 to 40 parts per 1,000, and that will kind of equilibrate that as we run the system and as the ponds come online and determine the residence time. The residence time is 90 days for the water. And so as you go further north, that will get saltier because the water is cascading from pond to pond. But, and then over the life of the project, as the sea gets saltier, we'll be using less salt and seawater and more New River water. So there's some models that project out, you know, what that ratio looks like now in order to achieve target salinity and what that will be in 35 years.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave my email address so you can forward me any more information.
Awesome.
Perfect. Next, we have Mr. Tom Septon.
Hello.
Looks like Tom got cut off, maybe. We can't hear you, Tom.
I saw a second unmute. Did you hear any part of what I asked?
No,
No.
we were not able.
Okay, let me re-ask. Sorry about that. Unmute came twice. So the question is, you've got several ponds and you will be moving water from pond to pond. Will all of the ponds be within the 20 to 40 parts per 1,000 salinity range, or will some of them be outside of that range? The other part of the question is, what type of fish do you intend to stock with, and would you be stocking all of the ponds with fish eventually? And also, since you will be reducing the amount of salt and seawater as it gets more saline as part of your mix, and sometimes the New River is high in selenium and other problematic constituents, what is your selenium management plan over time? Thanks.
So the salinity will range we can go up to 70 parts per thousand, but the goal would be to stay as many ponds as possible within the 20 to 40. For fish stocking, I think that's a question for CDFW. We're working with CDFW, but I don't know if anyone from CDFW on the panel can answer the question about fish species and stocking plans. We do have pupfish out there, so that's a consideration too about what gets stocked and where those fish come from.
Thank you. And about the selenium management?
Oh, selenium. So we are doing water quality testing. We'll be working with the regional board and with CDFW on that. That'll be something that we have to adaptively manage for if it becomes an issue at the project site. So, yeah.
Would you consider a third clean water source if you found that you have trouble managing selenium when you have high selenium load in the New River and your salt and seawater is so saline that you can only use a little bit of it?
Yeah, I think that that's something that we've talked about, just really conceptually about opportunities for additional wetlands or, but at this point, we're focused on the design as is, and then we'll just address that if it becomes an issue.
Thank you.
And I see Barbara has her hand up for the fish stocking.
Hey, good afternoon. Yeah, this is Barbara Berry from CDFW Salt and Sea Program. We are in the midst of planning for fish introduction at SCH, and we do plan on stocking in East Pond once it equilibrates and once temperatures cool down later on in the fall. Right now, we are planning on introducing tilapia, but I believe the SCH adaptive management plan lists several other fish species that we could consider that are ubiquitous in the drains in the area. But right now, our plan is to look at hybrid Mozambique tilapia for initial introduction, and we will see how that population does over time.
Thank you. They did well in the past. We hope they do well in the future for the sake of pelicans and the larger birds.
I do as well. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that concludes the round of questions for the SEH. If we can move on to our next slide, please, and pass it over again to my colleague Mario.
Good afternoon. Next slide, please. So I won't go to the three sites. I think everybody knows where they are now, and I showed it in the previous slide, but I just wanted to talk about the illustration there. So as seen on the illustration, the first phase of these projects is to strategically place bales or bale arrays facing the predominant winds on the upwind side of the project to create immediate dust suppression on the site. That zone we refer to as Zone A. That's the initial placing of the bales, about halfway down towards the shoreline, towards the shoreline. And then we have a Zone B where we're not placing bales downwind of the of these bales here. I guess phase two of placing the bales consists of running drip irrigation and planting and seeding in between the bales. And then planting in the bare areas that I just talked about in Zone B, closest to the shoreline, that have no bales but are receiving a benefit from the upwind bale arrays. One other positive function of the bales, and at least what we're seeing, and what we thought when we initially started designing this project, is that one major function of the bales is also protecting the young plants from abrasive sand particles during high wind events. So we're primarily seeding or planting small, 4 to 6 inch plants out there, and as you can imagine, with high winds and dust blowing at the ground level, you can imagine a lot of abrasion on those young plants. So it really gives them a chance to thrive, and that's exactly what we've been seeing. Next slide. So typically in these sites, we're seeing wind driving dust into our projects from the inland side of the project towards the shoreline, or east to west, and in some cases north to south, and to a lesser extent, I guess to a lesser extent, north to south, and then south to, I guess southwest or southeast to southwest to east. The far left photo shows one of our monitoring stations, which measures wind speed, temperature, wind direction, PM, and saltation. You'll see that little saltometer down by the person with the hat there. That's primarily what we're measuring, just to see what's being emitted off the site. The top right photo is an illustration of saltation, which is how we measured the dust emissions at the project sites. Saltation is the movement of windblown particles at the ground level, kicking up other particles from these sites, these project sites, and causing them to become airborne, which could further add to dust emissions off the site. Next slide. So the photo on the left shows how we placed a transect of 3 monitoring stations across our sites to monitor, the performance from upwind down to the middle of the project and downwind of the project. We placed one station just outside of the project, one in the middle, still in the bale areas, and then one just outside of the bale areas. We're finding up to 95% reduction in saltation from the upwind monitor to the downwind monitor in some areas, at least in some of the initial areas. And now we have a larger snapshot of approximately 3 years of monitoring and new stations that have been put out there. So we're seeing fluctuation in that. We're finding that maybe in the clubhouse area where we were seeing that 95% reduction on saltation, maybe it was shielded by the community being just kind of upwind of those sites. But like I said, from recent monitoring and gathering all the data and averaging it out over the last 2 to 3 years of monitoring, we're showing closer to a 75% to 95% reduction of saltation across the various sites, all 3 sites, Clubhouse, Tule Wash, and West Bombay Beach. And we're seeing that before any plants are even growing. So this tells us that the bales are working initially when they go down to keep the wind-blown particles at the ground level from kicking up more dust at the sites, contributing to air quality on exposed lake bed, poor air quality on exposed lake bed. As vegetation grows, the percentage of reduction in saltation increases. So I think as we start, and I lost the slide. Did we lose the slide here?
I
Or is
lost
that
it too, Mario.
Okay, I just wanted to say, yeah, I want to make sure that it wasn't on my end. Maybe we can get the slide back up.
It looks like we lost Josh, Mario.
I can bring it up.
There we go.
Are you able to see my screen, Mario?
Yeah. Maybe can you put it in presenter mode there? Yeah. There we go. Yeah, so just to finish the slide here, the photo on the right shows how the outer 4 rows of densely placed bales on the upwind side get buried by the sand, which is really kind of acting as the first line of defense at the outer edge of our projects in keeping dust down before they get into the project. So just wanted to show that picture there. Next slide. So to the earlier slide regarding reduction in saltation, this figure shows the various stages of our project from beginning to end and how the reduction of saltation increases at the 4 various stages of these projects. I'd say like at the clubhouse site, we're somewhere near stage 3, in some cases 4. And at Tully Wash, we're probably between stages 2 and 3. And so you can see that, as vegetation starts to grow, that saltation reduction starts to happen um, at the sites. And then I just want to plug that at the State Water Board workshop, we'll have as part of panel 1, we'll go into a little more depth into air quality on our projects, and that'll kind of explain this a little further and how it relates to PM10. Next slide. So just wanted to show this slide because early on we designed stormwater spreading features and furrows with notched areas at the 3 sites that are adjacent to washes. As many may know, that during large rain events, there's significant water that comes into the sea from the mountains on the west, and you get these flash floods that occur through there. And fortunately, we were able to get some of these sites down and these stormwater spreading features. And during those rain events over the last couple of years, not so much recently, but we had a tremendous amount of water rush to the site, and the furrows allowed the water to spread and sheet flow across the site, capturing all the water kind of rushing through and using what water we could. One thing it also does is it's spread like the seed bank, and as water flows, it's carrying seed with it. So we saw a lot more germination happen in areas that we didn't even plant. And luckily, we were able to get these features in before those storms that passed a couple years back. Next slide. So this slide shows our clubhouse site, which is completed. This slide shows the progression of growth over 3 years. We have 2 zones at this site. So like I mentioned, the zone A was the baled site, and then as you get closer down to the shoreline, you have zone B. And both sites do get drip and get planted with the planting on the zone A bale arrays happening in between the bales to protect the young plants. And the project, like I said, the project close to the shoreline doesn't have any bales, but it's receiving protection from the upwind side. So you'll see on the top row of photos, that's out towards the shoreline, and we've been able to establish plants without bales on, as you get closer to the shoreline, out on the exposed lake bed. And so we've seen pretty good success with that. And then the bottom is just showing that zone A with the bales, that first step of interim dust suppression, and then 2 years of growth through through those bales. And you can see some of the growth has already kind of overtaken the bales. You'll see some that are brown, and that just indicates, I think, when the picture was taken, that they were in their dormancy. But they're very much alive and very much green up. Next slide. So this slide shows our largest project site, Tully Wash, which is a 1,000-acre, 1,215-acre site. To date, approximately 903 acres have been completed at the site. The site will be completed this year. This slide shows the growth again over the last 2.5 years. This was planted later, maybe almost a year later than the clubhouse sites. And you can see, the growth again from the downwind side to 2023 planting, and then the 2 pictures in zone A. Plants aren't as big there, but they're about a year behind the previous pictures that you saw on the clubhouse site. Next slide. So West Palm Beach was a site that received bales and shallow furrows for interim dust suppression pretty early on. We use groundwater wells, by the way, to irrigate all these sites. And upon groundwater exploration to about 800 feet, we didn't find any groundwater at West Palm Beach. and we're told that's likely due to faults in the area. So we had to kind of figure out water and had to halt on these projects. That's why you don't see any growth at this time there. Um, the planting on this site is tracking behind, but well, because we didn't find water to irrigate, and then two, there's a lack of existing vegetation and very clay soils as opposed to the other side of the sea that led us to believe establishing new plants would be difficult. However, in 2024, we did conduct a successful planting trial. You can see that on the pictures here. Um, and we saw very good success, and that the plants, while growing a little slower, were still able to germinate. Seed was able to germinate. Plants, took off right away. And like I said, not growing as fast, but they've still taken. So we're going to continue with this treatment. And this site will be planted and completed beginning in fall of 2025. Next slide. So again, this is just a photo comparison of when we first got out there, put the bales down. And then this is the growth after 1 year, just again showing the success that we're having with the plants. Um, Next slide. And the picture on the left there is a picture of an annual report. That's an aerial photo of the same site 3 years later, and just showing the established vegetation from a satellite image. And the one on the right are just a couple drone photos, recent drone photos that we received, just showing about 2 years of growth at these sites here, and just showing that it is in fact spreading and growing and creating really nice habitat for local fauna in the area. And that concludes my presentation on veg enhancements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. And this is the time if anybody has any questions in regards to our veg enhancement projects.
This, I do have a question. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thanks, Mario. And question is, in order to establish or quantify the importance of the bales for protecting the young plants, have you done any controlled test, for example, one or more plots adjacent to each other with bales and without bales, and in both cases, planting iodine bush or whatever, anything else you're planting, and providing water? We know that the iodine bush will naturally grow out in these playas if they have enough water supply and the seeds get there. So have you done any quantification of the importance of the bales? Thanks.
Yeah, good question. I don't think we've done a trial just like on the upwind side, but that's certainly I'm sure someone's thought of it, but if not, we can certainly do that. One thing through adaptive management of these projects is, we found, because we hear people say that the bales are eyesores. And so our modelers, and by the way, the original modeling called for a smaller bale. So I think the number is actually higher. So they're redoing the modeling to see what the reduction is, to give an accurate number. Those are very conservative numbers that I threw out there. What we've done through adaptive management is started to taper off and reduce the number of bales, the dense bale areas, the zone A areas, and found that maybe even reducing up to 50%, we'd be lower, probably like at 60% of immediate, dust suppression off the site, which, given the success and how quickly plants are growing, I think we're leaning to being comfortable with going that route and using less bales at future sites. But yeah, to the trial, I'll have to check if there is something. I don't think there is anything planted, but that's a good suggestion.
Appreciate the response. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, at this point, we'll turn it over to my colleague, Samantha.
Hi there. Today I'll be talking about some of our biological work happening at the Salton Sea, including what we've done in the past year and what we're hoping to do for 2025. So as we know, it's a terminal lake, and the habitat is rapidly changing as the water is evaporating and we have limited inflows. So we're seeing rapidly shrinking size and increasing in salinity. And this work is helping us track those changes and see what's happening around the Salton Sea. Next slide. So some of the interesting facts about the Salton Sea habitat, we have a really diverse ecosystem. It just doesn't include the fish-eating birds that some of our projects are targeting. We'll also include the endemic desert pupfish, but also things that are upland, like the burrowing owls, or something that you see here, a desert iguana, a flat-tail horn lizard. So some of these things that you've seen previously, and the dust suppression projects are providing habitat for those type of species. And we're also a really important migration hotspot for the Pacific Flyway, drawing birds in from Alaska over to the Great Lakes area, all the way down to the Salton Sea, funneling them as they continue down to South America. So our projects are quite important for a variety of wildlife. So you can go to the next slide. Thanks. So part of our work that we've done for the Salton Sea Management Program has been tracking the fisheries as they exist in the Salton Sea Lake. Previously, the Fish and Wildlife Department tracked the fisheries for sport fisheries, the ones that were stocked during the 50s, to see how much sport fisheries was available for people to come and fish. However, there was clearly a decline of those as our salinity increased and those fish couldn't survive anymore. And so you'll see that occurring right around 2007, 2008 in this data. That was when the last croaker, the last corvinas were actually captured during our CDFW gill netting surveys. And at that point, you could see the that competition and predation pressure was released off of the tilapia, who are much more tolerant of high salinity, high temperatures, low dissolved oxygen, and so their populations exploded. And you can see that there in a 27 catch per unit effort in our 2008 surveys. At that point, our department stopped monitoring for a while because it was the sport fisheries was gone. So we had no need to, but we reinitiated that effort in 2017 so we can answer that question of, are there fish still in the sea, providing forage for fish-eating birds? And clearly at this point, the salinity of the lake was quite high, over 60 parts per thousand at that point. And so tilapia were only found near the river mouths and areas where there's freshwater input. And you can see now we have a catch per unit effort of only 1.1. So we have had challenges continuing that effort with access to putting our boats in, with access to the boat launch due to the shrinking sea. But thanks to the SCH project installing a new boat ramp that we can access into the deeper water, we were finally able to get out and do another round of fish sampling in 2024. So that's been really exciting. And unfortunately, we caught just a couple individual fish, not even a one unit to mark here of effort. So that's the current status of our fisheries. And next slide. In tandem with this, you'll see our fish-eating bird surveys. These are a survey that we do via aerial surveys. Previously, we did it every year. We had a few challenges and a gap in our and are surveying similarly after 2018, and we're just getting those reinitiated. So we don't yet have additional results to share, but you can see that the decline in fish-eating birds directly follows the decline in fish that we saw right around 2016. In this chart, you see a dramatic drop in those numbers. And in this chart, this is abundance on the left side and seasonality for the migrating populations on the bottom. And those colors are double-crested cormorants, brown pelicans, and American white pelicans. They're all birds that are big enough that we can visibly see when we fly around in the airplane. And there's a picture there of sort of what it looks like from the airplane. And those would be white pelicans around Moreton Bay, I believe. All right, and then next slide, please. Something else that we're doing to just keep track of the status of resources around the lake is trying to monitor the habitats that are cropping up around the perimeter. So this is an example on this slide. This photo is an example of marsh habitat that's growing at the end of a irrigation drain, right before it reaches, if it reaches at all, the Salton Sea. This one happens to be at the north end, but this is really similar to what it looks like at the end of many of the irrigation ditches. There's a variety of salt cedar, but some pooled area and a variety of obligate wetland habitat and cattails. So we're out doing surveys to call back and listen for secretive marsh birds. You can go ahead and click again, please. So this is some examples, and you could do another one, please. This is an example of the work we're doing where we're having to walk out and to survey some of these areas. Here's a map of some occupied habitat that we found, where we found endangered ridgeways rail and California black rail. And this is an example of one of our coworkers, Jay, having to wear specific boots so that we can easily walk across these really soft soils and mud. So we can actually walk out into these marshes across really soft mud so that we can use a speaker. Can you play one more click, please? We can play a speaker and into the marsh to kind of hear this bird calling back to us, because they're very seldom seen, and we have to call back and listen for them to know where they're using. So that's example of secretive marsh bird surveys, identifying them in the marsh. But if you go one more slide ahead, we'll see that we also have our endemic desert pupfish using similar habitats. So they might be using different spots of the same marsh or the drain mouths, but there are endemic fish to the area. They're really tolerant of high salinity, high temperatures, low dissolved oxygen. And unfortunately, the sea is now even exceeding the tolerance of them. So they're really limited to some of these more hospitable pockets, and without the ability to connect to the Salton Sea and use that to travel from drain to drain, those populations are being more isolated and becoming more at risk. And next slide, please. So all of this work has been sort of summarized in our monitoring and implementation plan, which is a programmatic document that we put together in 2022 that acknowledges the different monitoring that needs to happen, both at the sea and at constructed projects to guide our work. And some of the goals of this project would be identifying, prioritizing those monitoring activities that we're doing, really establishing milestones that we're gathering our data against, and having a long-term monitoring plan that we can compare our surveys with. This helps us establish methods for both collecting our data and reporting them out, and helped us identify data gaps so that we can partner with other groups and make sure we're collecting the information that we need to make quality decisions. All right, next, please. So what we did last year, we kind of gave a brief summary as we went here, but we conducted water quality sampling, which was in partnership with Department of Water Resources and Torres Martinez Desert Quilla Indians, which facilitated access and helped for us to do surveys both at the north end and the south end. We also did an interesting survey for predator deterrence at our SCH site to see if we could use coyote, wolf, or cougar urine to deter predators from areas that might be sensitive where birds are nesting. And here in the second photo in the center, you'll see a nice muddy coyote that's in front of the trail cameras that we used to truth whether it was successful or not. We also, as previously mentioned, reinitiated those fish surveys. And here's a nice example of our fearless leader and one of our boat captains out setting, it looks like setting nets for fish surveys in the Salton Sea. And then we've also been thankful to have access via the boat launch to go out on the airboat and continue doing bird surveys, which we partner with Audubon, California, and Point Blue Bird Observatory, among others, to do a comprehensive survey of the entire shoreline for shorebirds each year, multiple times a year. So here's a photo of some of the hazards that we're seeing crop up as the sea recedes all over the lake here. All right, and then next, please. Oh, sorry, last one. We also worked on planning our priorities for the next year, which sets us up for the next slide, which is planning out our 2025 activities. So you can go ahead, thanks. So planning out our 2025 activities, which is continuing all those surveys that we previously mentioned, but also beginning invertebrate sampling that is going to happen at that SCH project site, as well as a new environmental DNA study where we'll be able to take a swab of water and take a DNA sampling of it to understand what sort of critters are using our particular habitat. And here in our photo, here's the boat launch that we've mentioned several times with nice traction, nice deep water to put in, and putting our airboat in right there, as well as some work along the SCH site at the bottom here. All right, next, please. And here's a few fun photos of some of our work. Just to run through, we have desert pupfish up in the upper corner, or we have a burrowing owl on an irrigation control structure. I have Jay Kellum again going through the marsh. I guarantee if you didn't have those mud boots on, your foot will be sinking 12 inches or more, and he's walking through like a pro. And the bottom, we have a brown pelican that's visiting. And then in the center, on the lower, we have one of our islands constructed at the SCH site that already has birds using it as soon as there's even a smidgen of water around it. So that's great to see. And next. And here is our airboat, CDFW airboat with Jose Figueroa driving, and also Razia from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service conducting shorebird surveys. I wanted to share that this is just a really big deal for us to be able to get out into the water with the boat launch. Boat launch being out of access from anybody at the North Shore. It has been many years since 2018 since we've had consistent surveys of the entire shoreline. So the birding community is very excited to get these comprehensive surveys done via boat. Next. And so in addition to having the airboat and partnership with Fish and Wildlife Service to go out, we've also gotten a second boat that's an inflatable to add more redundancy and flexibility for our outings and for safety purposes. So here in this photo, you'll see an example of all of the equipment that the staff has to take out to do water quality sampling, there's hardly enough space for the people in that boat by the time they fit the coolers, the water sampling equipment. All right, and this is, any more questions? I just want to share that that was our water sampling that was in tandem with the water control board. So thank you, guys.
Perfect. Thank you, Sam. Okay, at this point, I would like to invite colleague Stephanie Holstage from the water boards. Very important update.
Thank you, Miguel. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Holstage. I'm a senior environmental scientist with the State Water Board, and we are planning for our upcoming Water Board Salt and Sea Management Program workshop, which is coming up soon. So I'd like to invite you all to participate in that. Go ahead to the next slide, please. The workshop will be May 21st from 9 a.m. until around 6 p.m. But the end time will be dependent on the number of public comments. State Water Board members will hear Natural Resources Agency's annual update on their salt and sea management program. We'll have panels presenting on SSMP data collection and management, as well as adapting to challenges and accelerating the work ahead. And we'll have 2 public comment periods. Next slide. The meeting will be held at the Coachella Valley Unified School District in Thermal. We will also have a Zoom option if you'd like to provide public comments. You can register starting May 12th. And then we also have a webcast option if you don't intend to provide public comments and would just like to watch or listen. And all of those options will include Spanish interpretation. Next slide, please. Here is our workshop agenda. So it's pretty much the same as last year's workshop. Our board chair, Joaquin, will introduce the item, and then we will have an opportunity for elected officials or their designated representative to provide comments. I'll provide a staff presentation, and then the SSMP will provide their phase 1 update to the board, and there will be a board Q&A. And then we'll move into the first public comment. So we will be prioritizing community organizations and community members during this first public comment period. So if you'd like to speak during that time, you can email me your contact information in advance for me to provide to our board clerk. If you're part of a community organization and would like multiple people to speak consecutively, you can also send me a list of names and email addresses, and I can coordinate that with the clerk. So you can do that in advance, or you can sign up to speak the day of the workshop as well, or beginning May 12th via the speaker card. So then we'll go into a break after the public comment period, and then we'll move into those 2 panels. Immediately following the second panel, we'll have our public comment, and then we'll close out the workshop with any board member discussion and closing comments. Go ahead to the next slide. If you have any accessibility or interpretation requests in a language other than Spanish, if you can submit those by May 7th, our notice of public workshop is available on our webpage and has instructions on how to submit those requests. Written comments are due by May 12th. More information is on our webpage. We have as I said, our workshop notice. We also have a flyer that you can distribute if you like, or just look out for more information. We also have a new frequently asked questions document that's available on our webpage. And then coming soon will be the final day of agenda, which will list the panelists, as well as the staff report and the speaker card form. And you can subscribe to updates on our webpage. We have a webpage in both English and Spanish. And if you have any questions or comments, there's my email address to reach out, or if you'd like to provide your name for public comment in advance. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. And looking forward to that important annual Salt and Sea workshop. And at this point, we'll move on to our public comment period. As I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this meeting, you have the option to use the Q&A box to ask your questions. And thank you for those that have been using it throughout the meeting. And also, you have the option to raise your hand if you want to make a verbal comment. Feel free to raise your hand and we'll unmute as we see him coming online. Okay, and I do see Mr. Lackage. You know, please allow him to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Thanks for another opportunity to say a few words. I was going to ask Samantha, but nobody gave me opportunity. I was going to ask her how in next 10 years how much fish she expect in Southern Sea. But the second question is really for you. Are you open for? Is there any chance that I can see you, gentlemen, and talk to you a little bit about situation about Southern Sea? Because I'm sorry to say that, but it's a drive in the wrong direction. It's we can save Southern Sea. We can make $500 million revenue at least, and put Salton Sea in world map, recreation, fisheries, and everything. But nobody want to listen. So I'm writing a letter to the governor, actually asking for executive order to stop this nonsense and to review my proposal, which was twice sabotaged. I'm sorry to say that, but that's how it is. So I'm still asking, is there any chance, are you open to listen a little bit and that we can meet and then give me 1 hour or hour and a half to make presentation, not just to ask 2 minutes or 1 minute. That's not enough, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lackage. And I'll pass it over for Samantha if she's able to answer the first question, and then we'll pass it over to Joe on the second one.
Hi, that question was if we expect there to be fish in the Salton Sea specifically.
No, how much you expect in next 10 years to be fish in Salton Sea?
Yeah, I do not expect that the conditions of the Salton Sea will change, that we will get any more fish.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm happy to talk more. Can you hear me okay? Mr. Lackage, feel free to send Miguel an email and we'll figure out a time to connect. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Is there any more public comments?
I'm just looking at the chat, Miguel. I think so. The first question, I think Melinda answered that. I think the second one from Mike is I think she answered that one too. The third one on volunteer opportunities, we would love to partner on more opportunities. Miguel, I don't know if you want to say anything about the Earth Day event that we had to pull down because of inclement weather. But to the extent folks have ideas for ways that we could do more to engage the community on volunteer opportunities through our project or through some other way, please let us know, because it's certainly top of mind to us and something that we want to partner on.
Definitely, yeah, and we are looking for those kinds of opportunities. It doesn't have to be a one of the existing partners. You can be a new partner. It can be a community member. If you have an idea that you would like to share with us, please feel free to reach out, and we can coordinate if you have anything in mind, and we can make it happen to have folks have also a role in our projects as well. And also with this, reiterate the offer of those tours. I mean, perhaps they're not volunteer opportunities per se, but it is a good way of folks seeing firsthand what we're doing out there. If I could mention, as part of the SCH project, we had a group of students coming. I believe it was 2023 when we had a group of students from a local high school that helped us build some artificial burrows. So that was an opportunity that we were able to coordinate with that specific group. And we look, and that was actually due because the teacher actually reached out to the program. We were able to, timing worked out perfectly that we were gonna get that done ourselves, but we got a hand from this Green Academy group that was part of the high school. So again, there's opportunities. So if you know if folks would like or have the interest of participating or have ideas, please feel free to reach out. Okay, and Mr. Lakic, I do see your hand up again, but I would allow others to haven't shared or have asked any questions before we go back to you. So if anybody else has a question, please raise your hand or use the Q&A box. Okay, and I do see Conchita.
Gracias, Miguel. Mi preocupación es acerca del tiempo para restablecer estos sitios para las aves y para los peces. Algunos- Algunas peces o aves, lagartijas, coyotes, para el 2030, si el lineamiento no se está cumpliendo, hay una probabilidad que estos animalitos o peces se extiendan.
Gracias, Conchita. Su audio está un poco cortado, pero creo que sí puedo entender su pregunta. No hay probabilidad de extinción. Sí existen especies con protección, como el pez cachorro del desierto, el desert pupfish, eh, que tienen ciertas medidas o ciertos lineamientos que tenemos que seguir para poder cuidarlos, ¿no? La biodiversidad del Salton Sea, pues igual como el resto del Salton Sea, es muy dinámico. Entonces, la flora y fauna que habitan aquí, pues se adaptan a las condiciones y con el trabajo que estamos haciendo nosotros, al ritmo que podemos avanzar, pues es nuestra misión o nuestro objetivo, pues mejorar esas condiciones para que no lleguen a ese punto donde ya dejen de existir, ¿verdad? Entonces sí estamos, claro, haciendo este trabajo para ayudar a proteger la calidad del aire, pero a su vez, pues también mejorar lo que es el valor ecológico o la restauración ecológica de Salton Sea. Espero eso conteste su pregunta.
Sí, gracias, Miguel. Ya creo que es una respuesta que puede tranquilizarme por el momento. Am, ¿Habrá la posibilidad de que nuevamente ustedes puedan hacer ese evento que anteriormente lo iban a hacer, que lo cancelaron, para que la comunidad vaya a recaudar semillas? Em, Esto es un punto muy importante en la involucración de la comunidad para que tenga un conocimiento educativo sobre las plantas nativas, porque estas plantas nativas son lo que ayuda a la fauna silvestre en su alimentación. Entonces, creo que por esa parte nosotros como comunidad podemos aportar. Ahora, pues, en la vida marina, pues es un poco más difícil la aportación de la comunidad.
Sí, gracias, Conchita. Y sí, pues tristemente tuvimos que cancelar el evento de la semana pasada, pero sí, pues prácticamente era la primera oportunidad que teníamos como programa de ofrecer una oportunidad para voluntarios, ¿no? Para miembros de la comunidad que nos pudieran ayudar. Y teníamos un programa preparado con hablar sobre las especies o la tipo de semilla o la tipo de planta que íbamos a trabajar, cuáles eran los beneficios, las condiciones en las que sobreviven estas plantas y pues la importancia para el ecosistema de Salton Sea. Claro que vamos a buscar una oportunidad en el futuro para poderlo tener y igual como lo hicimos esta vez, pues trataremos de darle la mayor difusión para que más gente se nos una a participar en eventos como ese.
Ok, muy bien, gracias, Miguel.
Gracias,
En
Conchita.
algún punto que ustedes necesiten alguna encuesta o algo en que la comunidad pueda aportar, pues ya sabe que pueden contar conmigo. Muchas gracias por su tiempo.
Muchas gracias por estar aquí y gracias por su ayuda. Claro que sí, le vamos a tomar la palabra. Okay, next we have, I believe, Fernanda from IB Equity and Justice.
Hola, buenas tardes. Ahí iba a decir buenos días. Hola, CNRA, Miguel and team. Um, Thank you for the presentation. It was really well put together and very informative. Loved it. I did have a question about if if the CNRA has taken a look at the Lithium Valley specific plan and how the Lithium Valley specific plan moving forward will affect the Salton Sea and these projects that CNRA is currently moving forward. I want the public comment closes on May 5th, and I was wondering if one, if CNRA is considering what the LVSP is proposing for the water usages and like conservation areas, and if CNRA will be submitting a public comment to Imperial County for the Lithium Valley specific plan. Thank you.
So much, Fernanda. We are tracking the Lithium Valley specific plan and attended some of the public meetings that they had just to understand more about what's going on with the big picture plan. But also, I think what we want to take a close look at as well is some of the environmental work that's happening that is more project specific to understand more about the projects themselves as they're being stood up in those timelines. And so we're waiting for more information on that front. We're not planning on submitting a comment letter at this time.
Great, thank you, Joe. Okay, I do see another member of the IB Equity and Justice team.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Daniela from IB Equity. I wanted to just follow up on the response that was just shared and ask and, formally request that the CNRA submits, analyzes the water components and any other relevant parts of the programmatic environmental impact report that's going to be released soon. If y'all are choosing not to comment at this time on the LVSP, I would hope that it can become a priority to comment on the PEIR, especially because CNRA will be, so far as we understand, CNRA will be taking funds from any potential lithium tax from that 20%. So, this is more closely related. Lithium and the development is much more closely related than I feel like that, that is discussed in spaces like these. So yeah, our organization would formally request that CNRA does review the water components or any relevant components on the programmatic environmental impact report. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. We absolutely will. And that's part of the reason we're interested in following this information and understanding, more as that information becomes available.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think we're at time. I do see Mr. Lackage hands up if you want to go and
Oh wait, can I call on, sorry, can I call on Barbara to respond to something that IB Equity and Justice raised? Daniela, there's CNRA as an agency does not have specific comments right now, but CDFW might. So Barbara, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I just wanted to mention that CDFW is planning on sending a comment letter on the Lithium Valley specific plan, and we're working with our diverse programs amongst the department to get feedback and submit that on time. Thank you.
Hello.
Perfect. Go ahead,
Hello.
Mr. Lackage. This will be our last comment of the day.
Okay.
And Mr. Lackage, if you're speaking, there is no sound. Cannot hear you.
And
We can hear you
if
now.
you can provide me that, I would appreciate it.
I think we lost a good amount of your sound there, Mr. Lackage. If you don't mind repeating.
I'm asking for email. I'm asking for email for Joe Shea and his title. I didn't pick up his title in the beginning. Sorry, but is it possible?
I'll put it in the chat.
In the chat. Okay, Lord, that would be great. Let me see.
Okay. So with that, thank you, Mr. Lackage, and then thank you everybody for participating at today's meeting. And I'll pass it over to Joe for any closing remarks and ending our meeting.
So much, Miguel. And again, thank you everyone who showed up last night and was able to participate in a great in-person meeting, and for being here today. You know, as we've discussed here, we've got some big challenges ahead of us, but know that our team is working really hard to implement these projects and go about our work as quickly as we can in partnership with all of you. I just put my email in the chat too, so if you have anything that you want to talk about or feedback on this meeting, you know, you can reach out to Miguel, myself, or Mario, anyone else on our team as well. Or if there are other items that you want to discuss, please let us know. I would also just say Miguel and I will be at the Salton Sea event on May 9th doing a presentation, and we can send more information on that. It's actually in our newsletter that we put out just yesterday, I believe. You can find out more information there. And we will also be at the State Water Board workshop on May 21st. So if there's anything else that you want to talk about in person, we'd be eager to connect there in both of those places as well, and then on email always. So thank you again, and I think we can stop there unless you have anything else, Miguel.
That's it. Thank you all for attending. Till next time.